guys, my name is Sarah. If you are new here, I would love it if you would consider subscribing to my channel. I make mommy lifestyle type videos. I do some vlogs, some hauls, some cleaning videos. So if that sounds interesting to you, please consider joining my family here. Today I thought I would do a get to know me type video. It's going to be very informal, and before we jump into it, I guess I should first say I have a sunburn on my arms, my chest. We spent like all day outside yesterday, so I'm really feeling that today. And then my husband is also doing some work in our house downstairs that you might be able to hear, like drilling and things like that every once in a while. Don't be alarmed. It's just how Saturdays sound in our house now. So I wanted to do this really informal because I just kind of wanted to tell you my life story, I guess, kind of experiences I've had, where I'm coming from. And I also kind of wanted to set an intention for my YouTube channel because there's a lot of videos that I make that are similar to other people's videos, and we all do kind of similar cleaning style videos, day in the life, that type of thing. And I love making those type of videos. That's why I do it. But one of the main reasons why I started a YouTube channel and why I enjoy doing this is because I just recently became a stay-at-home mom. I wanted to create this space here on YouTube for myself and for other moms and just other women in general who are looking for some support, looking for some friendship, someone they can relate to, talk about things they're going through. And I really have been doing a lot of work on myself in terms of putting down barriers and walls and being vulnerable, because when it comes down to it, all of us women, we are working together, not against each other. And there's really no reason that we should feel that competition, because there's room for everyone to be successful and everyone to have these awesome wins in their life that we can celebrate for each other. So that's what I wanted to create here, and I wanted to kind of explain my life story and where I'm coming from to hopefully help you understand me and kind of understand the vibe of my channel. So without further ado, let me just get started. And I guess I'm going to have to start when I was in elementary school. I'm just gonna try to hit all of the like big points, and I'll go from there, and I'm not gonna leave anything out. I'm just gonna say it. So the first thing that I think is worth mentioning is when I was 11, my sister, I have one sister, she's 2.5 years younger than me. She was 9, and our father passed away, and it's kind of complicated as to why, but essentially his heart failed because one half was growing larger than the other half. And so he, I guess in some senses, had a heart attack, but it essentially stopped working. So he was in the hospital for about a week, and then he was pronounced brain dead, and so we lost our father when I was 11. So we had our single mom raising us for the remainder of our childhood. So we moved around a few times. Where I went to high school, up in Northern California, I found some really great friends, and I kind of found where I felt comfortable, and I felt like I was on the right path, and I was getting decent grades, and I kind of had a plan for where I wanted to go after high school. And then when I think it was the first half of my junior year of high school, I ended up getting pregnant. And a lot of things could have gone a million different directions from there, and there was a lot to decide and a lot to think about, and it's so hard when you're that young to make those type of decisions. But in the end, I actually ended up having a miscarriage at about 13 weeks. And so from there, we started the healing process, and I kind of reevaluated what I was doing with my life and what I really wanted after I graduated from high school. And that kind of also set the tone for me getting pregnant in the future and being in relationships in the future. And although it was a very tough experience in the moment, it really helped me learn a lot about myself and about things that I wanted. So when I graduated high school, I ended up moving back down to like Central California, and I went to school at UC Davis, University of California in Davis. And I went there for 4 years, and I graduated with a BS in managerial economics. And I definitely changed my majors a few times, but that's what I ended up doing because I just love math and I love business. And so that major at that school specifically just made a lot of sense for what I could see myself doing in the future. I was really happy with that college choice. I had a lot of fun. I was in a cappella in college, and so a lot of singing, a lot of great friends. It was just a really great experience. And the summer before my senior year of college, that was a summer that I really was doing a lot of self-work, and I was working out a lot, and I was just spending like the whole summer, because I was staying on campus working, I just spent the whole summer thinking about like how I could be a better person, and like what am I gonna do when I graduate college, because I only have a year left. And I just needed some time to think about that and kind of just like mentally prepare for like life after school, because when you go to school for that many years, you're like, I can't even understand what it's like to not be in school. So that summer was a big summer for me, and actually at the end of that summer, I had a friend set me up with a guy. And it's a crazy story that I don't probably have time to go into full details on right now, but she called me in the middle of the night. She was at a bar, and she said, I met this guy, and he's like your perfect match. You have to come to the bar right now in the middle of the night and meet this guy. And I was not the type of girl who went out to bars and partied and drank a lot. I did a little bit because, I mean, I had friends and that's what you do every once in a while, but that was not my thing. That was not something I liked to do. But because she was so confident that this was a great guy, and I lived with her, I knew she knew me very well. So I was like, all right, I'll come to this bar, but I'm completely sober. And it turns out he was completely sober, but everyone else was really drunk. So it was very awkward, weird comments being made, just felt very out of place. But he was very attractive, and he seemed very sweet and genuine, but it was hard to get to know him in that situation. So we left, I got his number, we ended up going out on a date. I think it was like the next day. And so it was just the two of us. And so then we really got to talk, and I got to actually know who he was, and he really was a good fit for me. I mean, he was smart and sweet and just amazing. And I had been looking for someone like him for so long, but I feel like because I was finally in the right like mental place to find him, it worked out. And it was crazy that my friend just like saw him and instantly knew that he was a good match for me. But essentially a couple days later after meeting him, it was like we were already dating, and like it was just end of story from there on. Like we were inseparable. And so that is who I am currently married to, my husband. So we met my senior year of college, and we actually ended up getting married. It was like the Christmas season, like right after I graduated. So we were not together for very long before we got married. So fast forward to that time right after I graduated. He graduated college. He went to a college like 20 minutes away from where I was. And so we both graduated, we got married, and he actually, right after he graduated, joined the Air Force. So we knew after we graduated and got married that we were going to be moving, and we were stationed in Ohio. So he had to go do officer training school for a few months, and then we both met up at his like training graduation, and we drove up to Ohio, and that's where we've been for the past, I think it's like 4.5 years now. Pretty much like 6 months after I graduated college, we've been in Ohio, and we're gonna be here for a little less than a year left, and then we're gonna be restationed. So that's a whole nother story. But we kind of always knew, like from when we first started dating, that he was going to join the Air Force and we were going to have to move. And although that was scary for me since I'd never lived anywhere besides California, I just knew that like if I went with him, it was going to be okay. No matter what happened, we were going to figure it out. And it was a little bit exciting. I mean, it's fun to do something different and have that opportunity, and we can always move back to where we grew up, but at this point, I don't think we're gonna do that because we found so many other places that we like more than California. But we've been in Ohio 4.5-ish years, and since we've been out here, I got a job working at Kroger while my husband's at the Air Force. We kind of live in the middle of where both of us worked, so we both had like a 45-minute commute either direction. So I worked at Kroger for about 4 years. While I was working at Kroger, we decided that we wanted to start trying to have a child, and I kind of was overwhelmed by the idea because for so long I thought, oh well, kids are like way off in the future and I don't have to think about that, and I don't even know when I want to have kids. And then something happened that made me decide to start trying, and I know this might sound weird and maybe like kind of like a rash decision or like a crazy decision, but my mom got diagnosed with breast cancer, and I knew I wanted to have kids soon, but I was like, I don't know, maybe in the next couple years. But when she got diagnosed, I just realized life is short, and one, I wanted her to see my child, and two, I just wanted to start having a family because family's important to me. And I didn't see any reason, I didn't see anything that was going to change in the next few years that was going to make us magically like more ready to have a child than where we were. We had a home, and we were married, and we had an income that could support a child. So I decided, now's the time, let's just do it. And I had no idea how long it was going to take us. And remember, I had a miscarriage before when I was in high school, so I had that in the back of my mind that I could have more miscarriages. I don't know what my body has never been pregnant and successfully carried the child, right? I've only been pregnant once in high school, and it ended in a miscarriage, so I was a little bit nervous. I was hoping that maybe that was just because my body was really young, and I was super stressed out and not mentally in a place that was healthy. So it was just scary starting to try for that first baby with my husband when we had no idea. I didn't know if he was even capable of having a child. There's so many things that you're unsure of when you first start trying. So it was very scary, but that first month we did not get pregnant, but we did end up getting pregnant the second month that we were trying. And the first, I would say, 20 weeks of the pregnancy, no issues. It was pretty much textbook. I mean, I've always had like a high BMI, so I knew like I don't need to gain a lot of weight for this pregnancy. And so I wasn't gaining a lot of weight. I gained like maybe 8 or 10 pounds the first like half of my pregnancy, and I was like, oh, that's great. You know, every checkup, every doctor's appointment, everything looked beautiful, no problems at all. But I started to get some pretty bad swelling like halfway through my pregnancy, and everyone told me swelling's fine, not a big deal, as long as it doesn't get like out of control. And I was having checkups where they were checking my blood pressure, they were checking my urine, nothing looked crazy, so I kept chugging along, and I was swollen, but it wasn't too big of a deal. But then when it started to get, I think I was around maybe 33 weeks, 34 weeks, the doctors started to notice that my blood pressure was going up and the protein in my urine was going up, and that's when they realized this is probably preeclampsia. So they had me do a 24-hour urine. Then when that came back, they're like, yeah, you need to go on bed rest. They actually held me overnight in the hospital to just check on my blood pressure to make sure that it wasn't completely out of control. And so after that, they're like, all right, you can go home on bed rest. So I was there for a few days. Then I started having really bad back and chest pain, so I went back in, and they did blood work, and they realized it turned to HELP syndrome, which is just really, really scary. And at that point, I was like one day before 36 weeks. So they're like, we have to just induce you. I mean, you cannot, once you get to about that 36-week mark, they're like, the baby is better out of you than in you at this point, because my body was just going to continue to just be in worse and worse shape, and there's a risk of seizures and all of these other things. So they tried to induce me for about 12 hours. My body did not respond. So then it ended in a C-section. I know that's a lot of detail for my pregnancy, but I just feel like it's an important part of my life. Like, that was a very, very important week of my life, that whole situation. And so I had a C-section, and my body actually handled it really well. I recovered really well. My son, his name is Dean, he had jaundice pretty bad the first few days, or the first week actually, but they held him for about 24 hours in the hospital and gave him some treatment for that, and then he was fine. And for being a month early, he actually had great lungs, and he did great. He did not have to be in the NICU for a second. He was amazing. So this story ended very well. It just was a scary week where they thought, you know, there's a lot of things that could go wrong. Once it turns to HELLP syndrome, it gets very serious real quick. So that was scary. Right before I got pregnant with my daughter, it was like right around when my son turned 1. My mom, like I'd mentioned, was diagnosed with breast cancer, and she really got a lot worse, and she actually ended up passing away this last October. So she never ended up finding out that I was pregnant with my daughter, but she did get to know my son, and she got to see him multiple times and saw him, you know, learning to crawl and say words and eat food. And so she at least got to experience him a little bit, which is what I wanted. And she always wanted to have a grandson, so I was just so happy that she got to see him and meet him. So that's a big part of what has happened to me over the last year, is kind of coming to terms with losing my mom and what does that look like for me. Because even though I'm an adult, my sister is an adult too. We just have the two of us. It's still very weird to think that you don't have any living parents. I think I'm gonna do a whole video on that whole situation and how I feel about that. But that definitely forces you to grow up a lot and to mature and just think about life differently, because I was so used to thinking, you know, I have my mom. I had lost my dad such a long time ago. But for some reason, losing my mom, it's so different now, because I don't have that parent that I can call or go to. I have to look for that in either other people or my husband and myself, you know, and just figuring out what's actually important in life and what can make you feel fulfilled in life. Because so much previous fulfillment came from my mom and talking to her and making her feel proud. So that has been a hard journey, and it hasn't even been a year yet, and I'm still kind of figuring that whole situation out. But that's a big part of my story that I wanted to share with you guys. So we always kind of thought we wanted to wait about 2 years before we had our second child, and especially having a C-section and HELLP syndrome. Honestly, I feel like anything less than 2 years would have probably been irresponsible, because my body needed to heal and it needed to kind of reset. And honestly, there's a potential for a lot of damage on your body when you have preeclampsia and HELLP syndrome. So I didn't know how bad that damage was going to be, or if it was going to be something that was like permanent. Luckily, I don't think it was, but I didn't know that at the time, so I needed time to just kind of see how my body reacted. So we waited about, I think it was a little over a year to start trying, because then that would mean that by the time I had the next baby, it would be like 2 years. And this time, when we tried for our second child, we also got pregnant on the 2nd month. So I don't know if that's just a coincidence, but it's funny that it took the exact same amount of time to get pregnant the second time around. So because I kind of had that in my brain that like it might take a month or two, I like pretty much planned exactly when I wanted to get pregnant. And this second baby that I'm currently pregnant with right now, I'm 26 weeks today. This baby is due like 2 weeks before my son's second birthday, so it's gonna be real close. We'll see. I mean, if I can go full term, and who knows, since this is my first actual pregnancy where I could go into labor naturally, my body might go a little bit over, and it might be more like their birthdays are a week apart. We'll see. But so far with this pregnancy, I'm doing great, and I don't have any swelling yet, and so I'm just really crossing my fingers that this one can go better than the last one, and so far it is. So I guess I should back up a little bit, because once I found out I was pregnant with my second child, and it's a girl, and I'm really excited, I knew that I wanted to stop working because I was working a lot and I was missing a lot of my son's life, and I just wasn't in a good mental place to be a mom, honestly, and be a good wife too, which is very important. So I knew we had to find a way for me to stop working, and I didn't know how we could pull it off, but we looked at our finances and there was a few things we had to pay off first. So we waited a few months. Actually, from the time that we made the decision to me actually stopping working, it was about 6 months that it took for us to get everything together and figure everything out. And then I stopped working, and I have been a stay-at-home mom now for a couple months, and there's days where I'm like, what am I doing? This is crazy. It's hard. We have a lot less money now. We have to budget so closely. And some days my toddler, he's 20 months, and he is getting to that age where he's just hard. He's a boy and he's crazy. But no matter what happens, even on the hardest days, I'm just so grateful that I have the opportunity to be a stay-at-home mom. Because not everyone gets that opportunity. I understand that. And I'm just so grateful, because I worked at Kroger for 4 years, and so every time I go into a Kroger, it just reminds me of all of that stress and anxiety. And I knew in my heart that that wasn't where I was supposed to be at that moment. I was supposed to be doing something else. And for everybody's story, it looks very different. So for some people, working gives them so much joy, and that's where they're supposed to be. But for me, I knew that I wasn't where I needed to be like mentally happy and just present and fully enjoy my life. That wasn't where I was supposed to be. And so I'm just so grateful that I have this opportunity to spend some time with my baby and really prepare for this next baby and make sure that my body is healthy and my mind is healthy. So that's what I'm doing right now, and I don't have any plans to go back to work, although I definitely could see myself going back to work at some point, because I do love working. My whole life, even in high school, I was very driven towards having a career and having all of these like professional related goals, and I just have always enjoyed working, so I could see myself going back, but for now, I don't have any plans. It's just gonna happen when it happens, and that's fine with me. And so I am on YouTube now, and it's mostly a hobby for me that I would love to turn into a career. I definitely love doing this, and I enjoy the editing process, the creativity behind it, because I've always been looking for a creative outlet, and especially when I was working so many hours, I didn't have a whole lot of opportunities, and it was just really hard to find ways to fit that in. So I really love that I can do that now. But I do see myself making this more of a career in the future. I'm kind of working towards that and kind of gaining some skills that I'm going to need to do that. So I would really love it if you guys would consider subscribing to my channel and following along my journey. I just want to create an environment where we can make friends, and there's no hidden agenda or business goals behind it. We're just sharing our life and our experiences, but I think just reminding ourselves that we are all on the same team, and there's no need to compete And also, there's no need to compare yourself because everybody has their own journey and nobody has gone through all of the life experiences that you've gone through. So it really is impossible to compare because you're a different person. You've gone through different things. You have different goals for your life. You have different genetics. You have different children, a different husband, wife, whatever family structure you have. It's all different. And so all you can do is compare yourself to yourself the day before and say, this is the version of myself I want to be, and this is who I want to be tomorrow, and work towards that. But we can all help each other and we can support each other in that journey. So that's what I want to convey to you guys, and hopefully in me showing my genuine self and trying to break down some of my own barriers and walls that I've put up in the past 27 years, I hope that that can inspire you to do the same, and we can just be friends and just talk and just share things that are hard. So that's what I'm doing on YouTube. I guess some other just fun facts about me. Like I just said, I'm 27. My husband is about to turn 30 in a couple months. His birthday's actually the day after my due date, so he might have a baby girl for his 30th birthday. My son is 20 months, and we have 2 dogs, an Airedale Terrier and a Schnauzer, mini Schnauzer. And we live out in Ohio on 2.5 acres, and there's a lot of grass to mow. And I really can't mow it anymore. It's really sad. That's a whole other story because I'm pregnant and we have a lot of hills, and if the lawnmower tips with me on it, it's a way worse situation than when it tips with my strong husband on it. So he does that. But I just wanted to share my story with you guys so you kind of know where I'm coming from. I know when I edit this, there's going to be a lot of like jumping around because I feel like there were all these things I kept forgetting to mention. So I'm sorry if this is a little bit of a hot mess, but I think I mentioned all of the important pieces at this point. So I appreciate you guys watching this, and please give it a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and I will see you guys in the next video. Thanks.